Thank you for joining us for this version 1 Unified Agile and DevOps demo. My name is Mark Debian, and I am a solution engineer and implementation consultant with CollabNet version 1. Today, I'll be walking through two of our core solutions, version 1 for Lifecycle, Agile ALM, and version 1 Continuum for DevOps. We will also have a moderator here to answer any questions you may have, and you can use the chat panel on the right side of the screen to engage in the Q&A. Thanks, and let's get started. So when we talk about our two different components here of life cycle and continuum, we're really talking about it in terms of what we call our V model here. So we've got value creation, and this is when we break down that work from a strategy all the way down into our stories and defects. This is the start of what we call our value stream management solution. So we can track that work from the first idea all the way through to the story and defect creation. So we'll do that with version 1 with our lifecycle products, starting at the portfolio level, breaking that work down to the program levels, and then finally to the team levels where we can interface in with existing team tools that you have, or we can use the version 1 team tools. So this is what we call our lifecycle model, and this will be the first part of the demonstration that we do today. I like to call this the concept to the commit stage of development. So that gets us down to the story level, which we often call our atomic unit of value. Once we have those stories done, then we go from the creation all the way to the commit portion of that. So when we start to commit that code, we can use one of the version control systems that we have as part of CollabNet, which includes Subversion and Git, or you can use any of the other source control tools that are out there as well. Once we have associated that commit to the work items, then we'll be able to track that work using our Continuum product. And Continuum will allow us to both watch and help manage the pipelines as they move through the different phases of the work. As we package that work up, we can track the releases and help you with the release of versioning and tracking of that work. And finally, get us to the deployment state to try to accelerate that delivery and get that work out to our end customers as quickly as possible. These integrations also have integrations with testing tools, as well as bringing that information and that data back over into Lifecycle in version 1. So this is what we will be covering today as part of this demonstration. We're going to start in the upper left, though, looking at the portfolio and our strategy, and then work our way all the way back down into delivery. So that's where we're going to be going next. So let's go ahead and jump right into version 1. So ideas can come from anywhere, and what we're looking at here is our ideas forum. This is a forum that you can use where you can also categorize different idea groups that you want your either your customers or maybe your internal teams to go ahead and use. What a team member will do is they'll submit a new idea over here, and once they submit that new idea, either internally or have your customers do that, you can vote on those various ideas, have a conversation about them, and then these ideas can become part of your portfolio. But this is just the start of capturing that idea. We don't want to spend a lot of time here, but we want to make sure that as we capture those ideas, we have them, and then when we go into version 1, we'll be able to actually track and manage those ideas as we move them through to delivery, hopefully. This is how version 1 at CollabNet does our own collection of requirements as well from our customers. We have an ideas forum that you can submit your own requests into for product changes. Once we have those ideas captured and categorized, we want to go ahead and break them down. So first, we're going to look at it from the highest level, or the big rock level in this case, and that is a strategic theme. So here I'm looking at an innovation goal, or the innovation strategic theme here on the upper right. And I like this screen because this captures for us how we can move the work or track the work from a value perspective. In this case, we have 435 points of total value. Now, those value numbers are actually being rolled up from the various different epics and features that we have built as part of our portfolio items. So this is a very handy high-level view of what's going on for a big goal, in this case, the innovation strategic theme. And we can also look at things that are important as we're having a meeting about the strategic theme. One of them is blocked items. So I know that there are 4 blocked work items for this theme. So as we're having our monthly review or our weekly review, those are the 4 things that we want to make sure that we cover when we're having this discussion and this review with our senior leadership team. We can also use this view to visualize our strategic themes. So when I go into visualization, this is going to show me one picture of that. So this is the big picture that I like to call our Death Star sometimes. So at the very center of this, we have the innovation view. The next level out is the epic view. So I can drill out to the epic view. In version one, we can use capabilities or features or a mix of both of them. So the next level out from the epic is going to be a capability level. So we can track capabilities. And then finally, we can go all the way out to our features, which is the goldenrod section here. And then the last section on the outer rim of this is are the user stories and the defects, represented here by the green and the red chevrons. Now, the size of the chevron does represent the size of that story. So the bigger the chevron, the bigger the story. And then this is just in one way so we can view and visualize that work and helps us to just understand where we currently are. And then if we want to, we can drill in further and we can find out more information about this specific strategic theme. One of the things we might want to know about the strategic theme would be the budgeting that we have for that. So here's an example of my strategic themes budget. In this case, I've got my budget segments here on the left-hand side, and we're looking at the different percentages that we've allocated for those various different strategic themes. At the highest level, I've got my core improvements at 30%. Right now, what we've completed so far of all the work is at 10%. So we're about 20% under what our goal is for core improvements. If we look at what we will complete, all of the work in flight, that says we're going to be just about halfway under our goal. So if we want to get core improvements up to that 30% goal, we know that we need more work that's being completed and planned into the core improvement strategic theme. So that's just one area, one way that we can help to plan the strategy and track how well we're doing across those different areas. We'll be going into a few more of those as we dive deeper into some of the other aspects of our portfolio planning. The way the version one solution works is that there's our 4 key menu areas. First, we're going to start at the highest level, portfolio, and this goes all the way down to the team level. So in here, we've already looked at our budgets and our strategic themes at some level. The next thing we want to do is look at this work that we've broken down from those strategic themes, and we're going to use our portfolio tree to see that work. So the portfolio tree is an example of a version one grid, and this is showing us just one way that you can set up and configure your portfolio tree. Any of the grids that we're looking at here can be customized. You can come over here to the wrench, and you can customize your view. You can also export these grids as well to Excel. So any of the columns that you put on here and all of the rows, you can go in and make sure that you export them in there. And finally, you can customize this with your own views as well to set various different filters and levels that you want to see as you're going through and looking at the various different grids. On this one here, we're looking at our portfolio items. And in here, we define the various different types for our portfolio to be epic, capability, and feature. So I've got epics, features, and capabilities in here, all as portfolio items. You can see me breaking down the work here as it rolls up from the features and capabilities up into my epic. Under the features, we've planned our user stories and our defects, represented here by the green and the red icons. Now, the work that we're doing at a story level, the story points are rolling all the way up into the estimates here at the epic level. The same thing with the teams that are working on these stories. So if you want to know who's building this specific epic, you only need to look at the epic, and it'll show you all of the details for the teams that are working on that epic. We also support tagging and our ability to then align these epics to our strategic themes, which you can see right here. And in this case, this epic is rolling up to our innovation strategic theme. As I dive into the details of one of these epics and we look at the details page, this is where we'll be able to do some additional collaboration and set up some additional details for this epic. First, we have conversations, which allows us to have a discussion about this specific card, and we can have any discussions we want around that. On this epic, I've included my lean business case. So this is all of the detail that we want to see that the business team has given us for our ROI. And on this specific record here, we've also included in our ability to capture 3 different value scores. In this case, business value, which we showed you earlier, rolling up to the strategic theme, time criticality, and risk reduction. When we add up those three value numbers, that gives us our cost of delay. And then when we divide that by our feature estimate points, in this case we call that swag, that gives us this weighted shortest job first number of 0.53. Now we can use this weighted number as we look back at our grid here to decide how we want to rank the various different features or epics that we have. So if we wanted to, we can highlight our epics and we can then rank them. And one of the ways we can rank them is by weighted shortest job first. So we can use that weighted score to decide which ones we should be building first. And that might be one of the reasons or one of the ways that we use our ROI to determine how we want to move forward. Once we have that weighted score done, we want to go ahead and start to plan out that work and walk through our workflow. And we're going to do that workflow on our portfolio Kanban board. So on the portfolio Kanban board, this is going to allow us to show which of our epics are in flight, which ones are still being analyzed, and which ones are completed. So we can see on this workflow here what's going on. We're also using the priority in this case as the swim lanes. If I want to re-rank these or move them up or higher or lower, we can move them up or down on this view here. And I can also easily add items on my Kanban boards here as well by using the plus field to add a new portfolio item if I want to. Okay, once we have the workflow set and we're actually watching that workflow through the process here, we want to track that work on a roadmap as well. So I can go into my portfolio planner and go to my roadmap view. This specific roadmap view here is going to allow me to see all of my epics. In this case, I'm grouping them by my strategic themes again. And as I expand on this, this is showing me where all of the features are as they align up into that specific epic. And I even have my reporting capability here. Now, I like this view because it shows me a couple of key things. It'll show me whether or not we have a blocked item, and that's showing it right here with the triangle, the little red triangle there. Hopefully you can see that. I can also see the status. So this is showing me the status bar, if you can see the shaded area here, which is telling me that this specific feature, in this case, order entry, is behind schedule because it should be right here on the today line. So this is another thing that we want to use to help the teams figure out how they can get back on track with this specific feature. Any of these roadmaps that we're looking at here can be published. So there's a published view of that, and you can also save them out as a PDF as well if you want to go ahead and save it as a PDF. So the roadmap view is a nice way to go ahead and track all of the work that we're doing. And that pretty much wraps up all the things that we're going to look at from a portfolio section today. There are some other aspects of portfolio that we can look at, but I'm going to leave you with one of the things that I do at the portfolio level as I'm doing my 6 to 18 month plan. For all of my portfolio owners, we create a portfolio dashboard, and that allows us to put all of the details that they want to see on an easy to access dashboard view. In this case, I've got my portfolio Kanban, my roadmap, my tree, as well as my portfolio scorecard right here at my fingertips. And then I've also included analytics on this panel as well, so I can see some key metrics that are important to this organization. In this case, portfolio item progress reporting, feature completion, as well as other panels that I can add in here. So this is a customizable analytics panel that lets me see all of the details in there as I'm tracking that work throughout. All right, so those are the details that we can look at from a portfolio standpoint. Again, we're going to leave the portfolio planning section now. We're going to skip over product planning, but product planning is an important area where we could be doing our backlog refinement. We could also be managing requests or those ideas that we looked at earlier. We can also import any records that we want via the portfolio item import. So we're going to skip over that for now because it's very similar to the grid that we looked at for the epics and features, and we're going to start doing our release planning now. So we're going to go down one more section past the product planner, and we're going to go into our release planning now, and we're going to look at this from a release scheduling standpoint. So as we jump into release scheduling here, and this is going to show us how we could do a 3-month plan or a 10 to 12 week plan if we're going to be doing a release scheduling. So as we're doing that, what we already did, and as we saw earlier in portfolio planning, is we broke down the work from that strategic theme into our epics, into our features. What I'm going to do now is change my view, and I'm going to drop down into my product view. So we're going to be part of the product view for call center. So when I change that view over here with my views, that set up the view that I want to see here. And this is showing me all of the potential enhancements that we can make to our call center product. In this case, this is the list of features that we haven't decided to build yet, but we could build. And what we want to do now is decide how we want to build those features or in which release. In this case, we have the releases in the bottom here, release 1, release 2, or release 3. When do we think we're gonna build these individual features? This is a discussion we would have as we're starting to build out the features we plan to build in one of those 3. Now, VersionOne will help you out with some capacity planning, so we can track capacity. In this case, we can see that we're at 150 feature points of capacity or swag points of capacity already. So we don't want to move this feature into release 1 because we don't think we have enough capacity yet to go ahead and do that. So I'm probably going to move this feature down into release 2 because it looks like right here, as I look at the capacity number, it looks like we have ample capacity still to build something in release 2. We can do the same thing from a story point perspective as well. So I can see the story point capacity, and that's an even worse number for release 1, where 78 points of this says over capacity. So we don't want to plan any other work into release 1 yet. We'll probably plan all of that work, like we just mentioned, into release 2, simply by dragging it from here and dropping it down. We can also reorganize or reorder these features simply by moving them up or down on this view as well. As I expand on release 1, we can see capacity numbers for our teams as well. And I can also align the work to the individual teams by dragging them over and dropping them down onto these teams. If I want to see what a team like the core app team is building in release 1, when I click on this view here, this will show me the backlog, as you can see across the top, for release 1 for the core app team. So what this is showing me is the minimum marketable features and all of the work that we've planned to do that are aligned to my core app team. So this is how we filter that work, simply by selecting the right view here under the release. And now we can see the MMF, the minimum marketable features, or the MVP for release 1. And this is what we're going to go ahead and plan to build. Another thing that we can do here at the feature level is we can set our objectives. So in here, I can set objectives for my release. In this case, this is increased revenue by 5% objective. I can also drill down into the team level, and I can align these objectives to the team as well. So if I want to take something like this defect and say this is going to improve customer satisfaction, I'll just drag it and drop it right over here on this defect. And if you watch that build to address line now, you'll see that the customer satisfaction is going to show up here as one of the, right here, it's showing up as one of the items now, the goals now that we're satisfying, the objectives that are aligned to that specific unit of work. It's also, again, aligned to the core app team. So by setting these goals and then putting in a business value plan and a business value actual number, we're actually able to predict and do some program predictability about how well these teams that are aligning to this feature are actually performing. And we can use that to measure and see if we need to help them improve in the future. So when I go over to my reports module here, I can go into my program predictability. And when I run this program predictability report, this is going to show me all of the teams that we're looking for. It'll also help me gauge how well they've been doing. So our goal, our target performance is to be within this 80 to 100% range. Right now, the core app team, there are shining stars. The mobile app team, they happen to be our most improved. They had a good improvement from release 1 to release 2. And our platforms team, we know we had an issue in release 2, but we've done some corrective actions with our retrospectives, and it looks like they're on track as well to be within that target performance range of 80 to 100%. So this is one of the reports that can help us as we're looking at our release or our monthly or our 2-month, 3-month plan, and help us understand what we want to build within that plan range. And the other thing we also want to look at is a forecast of this. So once we've planned out that work, we can run a release forecast, and that'll tell us if we think that we're going to actually be able to hit the dates that we promised to our customer. So I'm going to go ahead and check this and say, let's look at all of the work we've scoped into here. I can change some of the variables if I want to, but let's go ahead and just run a full plan here, and this will tell me when we think we can deliver based on the velocity of the current teams that are working on this work versus when we have promised that delivery date to our end customer. So right now we promised a December 1st delivery date. That's our planned date, and that's what we're looking at here. But on average, this team actually is, with all the work that we have in that queue, as we saw, we had too many user stories in there. On average, we're not going to be able to deliver until the 15th of February, right around Valentine's Day. That could be a Valentine's Day massacre if the customer wanted it on December 1st. So what we can do is we can do a what if scenario plan here and say, what if we just look at the high priority items? We can tell the customer, we'll give you a specific date for the high priority items. When we run that, that's going to give us a new plan number, or new average number actually, and tell us when we think we can deliver on the work that's listed as high priority. So what this tells me is we can deliver all the high priority items by December 1st, or in this case, in mid-November, it looks like. And then the rest of the work we'll try to move in or see what we can do with the rest of that work. So what we'll do now is go back and replan that work and make sure that we have the right information that we can then deliver to the customer when they want it. So this is one of the release forecasting modules that I can do right here off of release planning. The other thing that we want to also do is make sure we've aligned our dependencies across that work. So as we go into our program board, this will show us how we've aligned the work across the program. What this is going to show me are the teams on the left-hand side here in this case. So I've got my various different teams here. Across the top, I've got the sprints and when we're going to be working on that work, including some key milestones. And what this allows me to do is see the features that my team, in this case, the platform team, is building. So in this case, RMA is one of the features that we're building, but I know that this customer calendar story needs to get done before I can deliver that feature because it's an upstream dependency. We can tell that by the direction of the arrow here, as well as the fact that it's on this board. So as I look at that, what I want to make sure that I have a discussion with the owners of this website team to make sure that they know that they either need to deliver on time during sprint 6, or I need to push out the delivery date for this feature into sprint 7. So we can do either or. It's a conversation though that we'll have, and when we have that conversation, we'll document it either here on the story, on the feature, or on both. If I have to, I can put an impediment or a risk in there as well, and we can lock and track and manage those risks as well. And we saw that early on the scorecard report that gave me visibility into those risks. So from a PI planning perspective, we looked at our scheduling. We went ahead and did our forecast and our program board. That's all the things that we're going to talk about today in terms of this, but there are a lot more things we can do here, including our regression planning, and we can do regression test planning as well in here. We'll come back at the end of this and look at a delivery at a glance board as we start talking about DevOps. But now that we have our 2-week plan set and our 2-month plan set and we're happy with how this looks, it's time to break this work down for this release into a 2-week plan. And we're going to do that one menu over in our team planner. And in team planning, this is where we're going to be able to do our sprint scheduling and our detailed planning. So we're going to start here, first planning this work into sprints, and then at the end, we'll finish up with our reviews and retrospectives once we've done our daily Scrum work. So let's do our sprint scheduling or sprint planning. In sprint scheduling, this works very similar to what we looked at in release planning, except on this screen here, you see 2 different backlogs. This is the backlog for a specific sprint or team. Again, we see it for the core app team sprint 5 because we have that filter here highlighted. And then the backlog at the bottom here, this is the backlog of the work that we have not planned into a sprint yet. So what we need to do in order to get this backlog work into the sprint is either drag it up here, we can drag it this way into one of these sprints, or we can use the checkbox and the move to sprint option right here. So we have multiple ways to go ahead and move that work into our sprint plan. I'm just going to take this spike story and drop it right into 7, and that would move that spike story right here onto 7, 6, or 5. If I want to assign it to a specific team, I can open up the sprint plan here. In this case, I can look at the core app team because I'm filtering for that team right now, and I can move it right to the core app team by dragging it over and putting it right on the core app team, and that'll align that work to the core app team. Okay, once we've gone and done that, we want to put our detailed tasks and tests in, and we can put tasks and tests in when we plan our story. Once we've gone ahead and planned the story and put our tasks and tests in, now it's time for us to do our daily execution, and we're going to do that in our Scrum team room. So where we're going to go next is into our team room, and this team room is a link or a URL that you could add and have your team members go right into. This is typically where your teams will start when they start their day working with VersionOne. If they wanted to, they could see all of the teams that they are assigned to here by looking at the team rooms under the My Home menu. Okay, so in this case, Fellowship of the Scrum is the Scrum team that we're looking at here. On this team room, let me turn off Team Forge for a second here and turn on my scorecard. On this one, we can see a scorecard that's specifically tailored for this team. So this is the detailed scorecard for my team right now. Lets me see some key metrics and some key details. At the top, we also have our breakdown of the work. When you're doing your daily stand-up, your team members would come in, just click on their icon, say, "Hi, I'm Danny." This is going to filter for Danny's work. And in this case, Danny will be able to move the work that he has over into the completed as if he's done. If he needs to track his time, maybe you track your hours or your remaining to do, you can come right under here and track, and it'll be able to track your effort hours as well as your to do hours. So this is a great way for your teams to get through their work on a very quick basis and then get back to the work that they want to do. When my last Scrum team, when I was a Scrum Master, we tried to get through this conversation and have this daily stand-up in 7.5 minutes, because that gave me 7.5 minutes then to deal with things like these impediments and these blockers. We can see that there's a blocking issue on this story. We need to make sure that we can address that as a team so that doesn't get in our way of having our burn down go down to 0 and track all of that work that we want to see. So this is some of the things that you can see at a team level. One more thing that's very handy if you're doing your estimating here is you can actually do estimating with our tool called Estimably. So Estimably allows us to see the backlog of the work. I usually like to open up the conversations panel, and then we start a game which allows us to estimate the work that we want to do. Over here, I'll look at my unestimated stories in my backlog, and I'll take one of those stories and drag it over here onto the game board. When I click on this ID after I begin a round, this is going to allow me to start a round of estimating. Each of your team members will see this on their handheld device or their iPad or their computer. In this case, I'll just put my name in there and start the game. When I join the game, all I see is the story as well as my ability to vote. So I can see how many people have voted and how many people are participating. As the Scrum Master, I'll be able to see who's voted already, but I don't know what the votes are yet. So we'll have a conversation about that. We'll document the conversation. And when I end the round, we'll see who has voted on what numbers. If there's a consensus, then this number then can be submitted right over to the work item. So this is just one easy way, another panel that you can have on your team room here to allow the teams to go ahead and manage the work that they want to very easily. In addition to conversations, another easy way to do some additional collaboration is using topics. So topics is a great way to put in your team definition of done or onboard rules or whatever you want the team to know about. And these topics can be shared with the team here. You can also put these topics on any of the different screens that we have in VersionOne to allow you to very easily manage the work that you want to see. So this is my Scrum team example, and this is what the Scrum team board looks like with their burn down chart. I'm also on another team, which is a Kanban team, which is looking at things a little bit differently. So this Kanban team in this case is going to be looking at the Kanban board from a storyboard perspective. And you see at the top here now, I've got my cycle time days, my WIP, my throughput, and a cumulative flow metric here instead of the burn down. So in here, we're tracking a WIP, so we can check work in progress, how many things we want in this specific category. We're also grouping categories, as you can see here under Dev Test. So you can group that work together as well and put a WIP limit on the group or on the individual work as well. We do track the start of the cycle and the end of the cycle, and then have work item cycle time reports that'll help us to track all of that. On the left-hand side here, because we've got all of this work sized as well, as we can tell you when we think we're going to get some of this other work started and done. So if you're expecting this mark as spam story to be completed, I can tell you we're probably not going to get to that until the first week of October. And the reason we know that is because of our throughput and our cycle time that we see at the top here. So these metrics are helping us to say, hey, we've got 21 things in progress. We're going 4.5 points per week. So that's when we're going to get to these other points over here on the left. So those are just two different views of the work here. The last thing we would do is our reviews and our retrospectives, which we can do again in the team area here. We can do our closed sprints as well as our retrospectives here in the team area if we want to go ahead and do our review and our retrospective. All right, so that's the first half of our demonstration today. And what I wanted to cover so far, show you what I covered so far, is going from that idea through the portfolio, doing a 6 month plan, and then we did a 3-month plan or a 2-month plan and a program, and then we did our 2-week sprint plan, and we executed that work either in our Scrum teams or in our Kanban teams. At this point, we're going to use version control and do our commits. When we do our commits, then that work is going to show up over in Continuum, and we're going to associate the work there over to the work in Continuum. So we're going to take a look now at the right side of this V where we've got the commits happening, and then we're going to track that work all the way up through Continuum and bring it back over to Lifecycle. So let's go ahead and look at that right now. So if I go back into my Kanban league, and we're going to go back into my Scrum team here, I'll just show you that I've got a couple of different repositories that we're working in. So in this case, I can open up my TeamForge repository here, and we can see the source code that we have. And if I wanted to, we could go in and drill into details and start making changes in either my Subversion or my Git repositories. We can also link in, like I mentioned earlier, to other types of Git or other repositories as well, depending on what source code you're looking at. But once I do a commit on this code and I associate it to a user story, that's going to kick off a pipeline over in Continuum. So when I look at that pipeline, this is what that commit has done. So in this case, the first pipeline that we're going to do is identify the user story that we have to the package based on the repo that we're using, and this kicked off a merge build pipeline. So if I look at the merge build pipeline, this is going to show me what we did in there. Once we finish the merge build, and that looked like that finished successfully, now we're waiting for this activity called check for readiness. And this is a manual activity. We had an automated build and then a manual activity here. And these are just two of the pipelines that we went ahead and built out for this specific progression of work that we're doing for this project. If I looked at the detail work for the merge build, that's going to show me in Continuum the pipeline and the different integrations that we're using for this one pipeline. So simply by doing a commit in my Subversion or my Git repository, now I can do a couple different things here when we kick off the merge build. The first one is checking those dependencies. So I want to check that all of my epic dependencies and all my work item dependencies and blocking issues are met. And if these aren't met, I may want to stop or do something or send out a warning message. So I can do that now, and I can trap and check that, because we're looking at, once we've done the commits, making sure we go back into our source of the planning solution, VersionOne, and make sure that all of that is correct. Okay, I can also do integrations with our TeamForge products as well. So here's looking at the repositories, and then we can do other details in here about changing artifact statuses, or again, adding comments to any artifacts that we have in TeamForge if we're using TeamForge. Once that's all been checked, we want to go ahead and do our Jenkins build. In this case, that's what we're using for our build tool. Now, Jenkins is good for builds, but Jenkins doesn't know what's in the manifest, all the user stories that might be in there. So here I can click on this, and it'll take me into Jenkins to see the details for the build. But I can also then, once I'm done with that, I can also do things like update the phase and the details in VersionOne, as well as the status in VersionOne. So why Jenkins is built for this build process here, we can do other things linking back into VersionOne before and after the Jenkins build. Once that's successful, then we want to go ahead and kick off some testing. So I've got a Slack post here where we're running Selenium as well as SonarQube testing. So that helps us to look at all the details there as well. I mentioned the manifest, so we can go back and look and see which user stories are in here. So this is showing me all of the user stories and defects that we've submitted as part of this, and this is showing me all of the commits and all the changes that we've done in those specific units of work. So these pipelines and these progressions are things that are easy to set up and change. You manage those, and we help you to set those up when we first start to implement this Continuum piece of our product. To look at it from a bigger picture perspective, we can go to our progression board. And the progression board is going to show us all of the different packages that are in flight. Each of the boxes on this report here represents a user story or a defect. Now, some of these packages have what we call an unmanaged or a rogue commit. Now, an unmanaged commit is a commit that's been done that we don't know which user story or which defect that's been associated to. Now, these are important because we want to make sure that we can track those unmanaged commits, and if we do have one, we want to go back into VersionOne where we can easily associate those unmanaged commits back into a specific story or a defect. Okay, we can also track how long it takes us to get through the different cycles here. How many days do we typically spend in this specific phase of DevOps, so we can try to improve that overall. And then it also gives us the ability to see the different revisions. So if we look at one package here like Web Store, we can see we're at revision 34 all the way up to revision 218 of this package, and we can see where all of the batches of work are across all the different versions and revisions of the specific Web Store package. By drilling into one of those, we can see another example of the activities and the pipelines that we're kicking off. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you can do a combination of manual and automated activities as part of a progression. In this case, these are all the different activities and the progressions that we've wanted to do to get from build through acceptance and regression tests, performance tests. Again, each one of these is a activity or an action that we want to do by kicking off a pipeline. And then there are some controls that we can put on this, either manual controls or automated controls, that we can go ahead and make sure that we've done all of our due diligence to move things forward. Now, by scrolling through all of this, this gives me basically my release notes of everything that we've done. But if we want a full audit trail of that, or ability to see all of the details of what's in there, when I click on audit and I generate that audit report, that's going to show me the full view of all of that. So when we go into our release readiness review or our change control board, we can use this audit to say, here's everything that happened, here's all of the approvers, here are all of the work items that we've got on this in terms of user stories and defects, and it'll allow us to make sure that we can very easily get through that process and get to deploying this code, showing the proof that we've gone ahead and done all the appropriate testing and DevOps activities, whether they be manual or automated. Okay. Once we're through all of that, we can again go back and see our manifest. On the manifest, we can drill into our changes. If we want to see the detailed changes, we can go all the way down into the source control. And when we go into source control, that shows us where we may have things, source file changes, and maybe source file changes that may have been risky. So a high risk file then can be tracked, and we can put additional controls on that to make sure that we don't have any high risk items escaping or maybe potential escaping defects. Okay, so that's looking at it from the detailed level as we go into each individual package. As we go back to our progression board, we can see those progressions again, and there's some very key metrics that we like to run as we're looking at these specific progressions, and we look at those on our metrics board. So our metrics board has a couple different views here. The first one is our flow metric. This is showing us all of the work as it's flowed through that progression from build all the way through to our release. In this case, I've got 27 stories and 27 work items, 23 of them being stories for defects that are just about ready to go into production. Now we can track things like efficiency and how long we've actually been working on something. We call that touch time, versus how long, once we're done working on it in a phase, how long does it sit on the shelf? We call that wait time. And when we look at an average, or the ratio between touch time and wait time, that gives us an average efficiency, in this case 15.3%. So this is an efficiency number that we can use to try to improve for future deliveries or deployments, and this helps us to make future decisions and make sure we understand where the potential bottlenecks are within our process. I mentioned risk earlier as well, so there's a similar risk metric that we can look at. The risk metric is going to show us those rogue commits over here on the right-hand side. So it says 2% of the commits that are in this specific version of this package are not associated to user stories. Now that might be a test code, that might be something else, that might be just a commit that was supposed to go to another package. So we want to go in and identify that and try to find out what that is before we move this along to the next phase. We can also track our risk and our value averages. So those risk indexes and those value delivery indexes based on the difference between tech debt or maintenance and actual adding new value. In this case, 93% of the work that we're doing for this release is new value work that we're going to go ahead and do. So once we've looked at our flow and our risk metrics, the next metric I like to look at is our insights. So insights gives us the ability now to look at it from a date perspective, and we can look at it for all packages, or we can look at it just for something like our web store package. In this case, we're looking at all the version control changes we've made, the continuous integration and automated and manual activities, how many different pipeline runs, as well as the deliveries that we've done. So if we're running tasks, or if we have tasks specifically on here, we're able to track those tasks as well and categorize those. If we do have failures or errors, we can drill into the details on those failures and errors and find out what really happened. So this insights kind of ties all that together and lets us see everything that's happened from the beginning to the end for all of the work that we're working on. It also helps us to identify where we need to make process improvements or changes. The other metric that I like to run here, as we talk about process improvements and changes, is looking at things like bottlenecks. So if I look at all my packages again, and we go into the details for the mobile app package here, this is going to show us our package delivery summary. As we look at our delivery summary, the one that I like to look at all the time is our average duration. So average duration tells us how long it's taken us to get all of that work through to a specific place, in this case, performance test. So performance test on average is taking us 25 days to get that work through performance test. So if we can decrease that time, that'll help us to increase the to decrease the lead time and increase the amount of throughput we can get through. Hopefully that means we can ship more product out to our end customer. So by looking at this either from an average or a percent in phase number perspective, that allow us then to look at our cycle time and try to decrease our cycle time as we improve our process and also hopefully improve the way we can deliver product out to our end customer. So all of this really is the culmination of us starting with that initial commit that the developer did, and then having that commit roll all the way back up to the delivery that we're doing and tracking all of that work as we go through. And we do that with a series of packages and pipelines that we can look at here. I'll just show you one example of the instances that we can look at. So this is showing me all of the different activities and the packages that we're doing. Some of them have been failed, so we fixed some of that work as well. Again, these are just individual pipelines of work that are going through the system as we manage and track all of that work as it flows through to get us to be able to deliver to the end customer. So finally, the last thing I'm going to show is our delivery at a glance report. So delivery at a glance, it really is back in the lifecycle side. So we've come back over to the lifecycle side, but I wanted to finish up with this because this shows us at the very end of the day, all of the epics that we have. In this case, the epics are over here on the left-hand side. It is bringing back some data though from DevOps. So code complexity here is a ranking that we're bringing in from our SonarQube data if we're using SonarQube. So we can tell you how complex each of these epics is. We're also tracking on this board here the different phases of work that we're doing in DevOps, which is what we're seeing here. As well as all of the user stories that are in those different phases. So this is showing us the phases of the work and where they are in that process that we just looked at. On the right side of the V and the DevOps side. So as I hover over one of these, this is an existing story, but I can see that this story is actually in two different phases. We have the story here, and you can probably see it. This is highlighted here as well. So I know that this story is in two different phases. So as we drill into that story, it'll tell us all of the details for what's happening on the delivery tab. So on the stories details page, there's a delivery tab which shows us all the commits, and we can link into those commits to go into our Git source control and review that if we want to. We can also see the packages and the deliveries, but then I can drill all the way down into the timeline back in Continuum and see all of the details. So the timeline in Continuum is going to show me, again, the two packages where that is, but it'll also give me the bus stop report, which shows me exactly every single change, every single artifact, the pipelines, the deployments, the promotions that we've done on this individual story. So this really is a one-stop shop to show me every integration that we've done with all of our different DevOps tools, and I can link into any one of these and drill into that and see exactly what happened and have a full picture of what I needed. And this can be, again, this was initiated from the left side of that V just because we knew that story was on this epic, and now we can drill in and find out what the details are on that specific story. So delivery at a glance is really a great way to show the detail work that's happening on the right side over in Continuum, as well as bringing that back over to the left side. The last view I'll show you here in delivery at a glance is a similar view to the one we just looked at, but this is that same package view. So I can see where all the different packages are, the versions of the packages, and again, if we have those rogue commits as well. So inside of Lifecycle, we can see everything that's going on in Continuum, and we have a complete picture of the unified understanding of what is going through these various different value streams of work, where the work is, and how long it's taking us to get that work delivered, hopefully helping us to make better decisions and improve our process as we move forward. So that's the end-to-end picture from the version 1 side all the way through to the delivery Continuum DevOps side, and then bringing that data back over to version 1. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration. If you want more information, you can send us an email to info@version1.com. And that is a great way to reach us. If you want more details or another demonstration of this, please let us know and we'd be happy to help. Thanks and have a great day.